Hi and welcome to the IT Chronicles. We're coming to you from the Gartner Data Center Conference in Las Vegas. I'm Kirstie Magowan and I'm here with Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirstie.
And today it's our pleasure to be chatting with Abbas Haider Ali from xMatters.
Good morning.
Good morning, Abbas. It's been probably about a year or so, I think, since we last spoke, and obviously in this industry things happen, lifetimes happen in a year.
A year is a very long time.
So why don't you kind of bring us up to date on xMatters for those that don't know who xMatters is, and what's happened in the last year or so since we've spoken.
Sure. So last year actually has been really exciting for us. So for us, from a product standpoint, we tend to, like a lot of software companies, release very, very frequently. But in terms of a span of a year, just to kind of summarize overall the pace at which we release product, it winds up being that we do a major capturing of a whole bunch of features every 3 months. That means we're 4 essentially product cycles into from the last time we talked. And a big part of our focus really in that time frame has been around integration work. Among other things, but that would probably be one of the most visible things to our customers. So if you look back to a year ago, I think we talked a lot about some of the work that our customers had done with tying in some really interesting products into our product portfolio. I think we talked a lot about Kellogg's and my addiction to Frosted Flakes.
Yes, I remember that.
And they'd done some great job with integrations, and we're kind of in a phase where, as the market itself has matured, integrations cross systems have actually become really, really interesting.
Sure.
So one of the things we focused on in the last year is making our integration platform really flexible and making it possible for engineers to actually script together capabilities that span multiple systems. And I'm happy to talk about, as we go on today, about some other use cases that's allowed us to do. But really, it's a whole new generation of integration capability and usage of our IT alerting platform in the last year.
Right. So you're here obviously at the Gartner conference. I believe you have a couple of different sessions that you're talking about?
I have a session later today actually, so that would be for those watching. It's on Tuesday. I believe today is Tuesday. I have my days right. At 1 o'clock in the Solution Hall in the theater. I have a session talking about just 3 steps to a more highly performant and responsive IT organization. And it's really based on a lot of the integration platform capabilities and what some customers have really done who are at the forefront of utilizing those capabilities to deliver value to their business. And that's really the focal point. It's a nice short 20 minutes. It tends to trigger a lot of follow-up discussions, which I'm sticking around for the afternoon to have some of those discussions. We actually have a roundtable, I believe at 3:15 today as well, for some clients who'd signed up ahead of time to have a follow-up discussion onto that. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's actually probably the most fun part of my role, is really going out there and actually talking to clients. The theoretical is great, but the practical, seeing what companies are doing with our products and in the marketplace in general, is always really exciting.
Right, especially when it contradicts like all the theory. It's like, oh, we never saw that part coming.
Right, right. I love to kind of walk in there and customers like, here's what I'm doing. I'm like, I had no idea that someone actually would do that with the product, but that is really cool. And that's actually the best type of customer feedback. It used to be back in the day, a lot of customer feedback was about interviewing, and you'd get feedback, you'd build it, you deliver it to customers. But because of the openness of platforms today, you build one thing with one intent, and someone does something completely different with it, and you go from a customer story to actually a customer's already done it. And now you're really trying to productize the idea so other people can try to do it. We find a really great source of both inspiration and innovation really comes from our customers.
I think we've seen that talking to other people too, is that they are meeting with their customers and actually, rather than telling them what your product can do, they're coming back to you and saying, this is what we're doing with your product.
Yeah, it seems strange when you think about, is that a new model that we're kind of going towards? Leveraging your customer base as your innovation centers.
Right.
And you're not asking them to do it, but they're going to, right? I mean, we've all done it on the opposite end. We're like, hey, that's really great, but I need to use it this way, and I might be able to manufacture this out of it, even though that wasn't what its intent was. Right. But to your point, how do you productize that as a vendor now? To take that somewhere?
Well, like most of these things, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So you can certainly count on your customers as doing innovative things with your platforms. It's a little tricky to take all of them as they come in and simply say, let's build them together. I'm a big Simpsons fan, have been for a long time, and there's kind of the old episode where they went out and surveyed a whole bunch of people, got the features, and assembled the world's worst car, which bankrupted Homer's previously successful brother.
Right.
Later he comes back with a baby translator that wins him back, which is an interesting story. Great series of episodes, by the way. Just a random plug for The Simpsons. But in any case, so it's kind of the idea of if you just take all the input blindly, you wind up with the worst of everything.
Sure.
Because customers have unique things that they want to do, and for themselves it's great, but it doesn't necessarily fit into your product. So I think it's very important to have a great through line and kind of a market thesis. The way I've heard it described, I think is very well is you have strong beliefs, but they're weakly held. Right, so you kind of have a direction you're headed in, but if you hear about a really interesting use case or an application of your technology that you can look at and say, hey, this actually is great, and I can see great marketability as well as great value, then you kind of adjust your opinion to accommodate that.
Yeah, so just being prepared to change direction and
That's right.
stream if you need to.
Yeah, it's the agility concept, right?
Yes.
It's not just digital transformation and agility for large enterprises, it's for every software company that's out there as well.
That's right.
Yeah, and I guess the key is, right, you as a vendor, you have your strategic vision, and you can tack it left and right slightly, but taking a 90-degree turn is a whole different discussion.
That's right.
Unless it's such a great idea that you're like, we'll definitely capitalize on it.
Well, we certainly have this discussion all the time internally in our strategy discussions, where sometimes I'm like, I would love to just tackle this problem or this thing that I talked to a customer about separately. I'm like, it would be great to have the resources just to be able to incubate your own software companies all the time, right? Yeah. It's one of the, I think, lesser used advantages of very large technology companies, I think, is where you see these opportunities and you can incubate them out. But then you always have the debate, of course, of are you better at innovating multiple things at the same time in a large organization, or spawning off different startups and having them running them and then reabsorbing them. Kind of the spin outs and spin ins that Cisco historically actually did a pretty good job with.
Right, and I guess that's the balance, right? I mean, there's someone has to do one and someone has to do the other.
Right.
And get there. So I guess we're at the the Gartner Data Center Conference. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. We've spoken a lot on from the service management perspective. This is obviously a different crowd in large part.
Right.
So where do you see this kind of going? Where in the next 6 months, 12 months, what do you see coming up that you're actively working at?
Yeah, so for us, one of the interesting trends that we continue to see is both the I'd say weakening of the purity of certain disciplines in IT management, but also the interconnectedness of those sort of capabilities as well. So kind of the where you had a very purist approach to IT service management, I think IT service management is getting to be more diluted and more relaxed, but at the same time it's blending more frequently into where classically data center infrastructure management or general operations or software release cycles. All those things are all kind of on their own disciplines, getting less pure, but they're interconnecting more with all the other components. And what you're winding up seeing is a more seamless connection between different parts of your organization. So the historical thing that we've talked about for a long time of silos and breaking down the walls and stuff like that, it's almost like the pace of the technology change and the type of activity we're seeing is not so much breaking them down, but it's kind of slowly dissolving them. It's kind of like dissipating, and there's all kinds of holes as they pour through. And I think the companies that succeed in their digital transformation journeys or whatever goals they have in terms of being more successful are the ones that don't fight that and really embrace it and say, hey, it's okay if we're not a pure follower of COBIT, or we're not a pure ITIL follower. We don't grab this particular framework and we adhere to it very strictly. I think the ones that do the best are the ones who actually absorb the best of all of them and are able to blend across them and really focus on their end operational goals versus being pure on any one discipline or the other.
Yeah, so I mean, I know we need to wrap up and stuff, but and not to put words in your mouth, but it almost sounds like you're saying ITSM is dying or it's dead, but maybe we'll have to pick that up on the next.
We should pick that up. I don't think ITSM is dying. I think ITSM, like a lot of other things, is transforming. And I think it's kind of, I think that's the key thing is, I think folks who look at it and say, well, it worked great for us, even 3 years ago. If someone's like, we have this approach and we built out, we deployed, and we're great with it, and it's 3 years old, I would say it's probably you're doing it wrong at this point. So it's one of those things where, like most other things that we see, you have to iterate quickly. ITSM itself has to become agile. I've seen everything from lean ITSM to agile ITSM be discussion areas. It's more a matter of evolving and continuously improving rather than being static. I think that's the key takeaway.
So I think we have a long session on that topic next time. So.
We do.
Thank you so much for joining us again. It's great to have you in person this time.
It is much easier to be here in person than dealing with the remote people across 3 different countries.
Thank you again.
Thanks a lot for your time, Abbas.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.